to another episode of Decatur Dish. I am Maria Moreau, joined by our media partners at Decatur Dish, publisher Dan Wisenhunt. And Dan, it is Tuesday, and boy, do we have a busy news week of the past 7 days since we last came on here out of DeKalb County. So let's get into some of these stories. I want to start by talking about MARTA because this is some relevant information for our viewers out there. MARTA is extending its public comment period to allow folks to weigh in on some new developments and paths that they want to create for their transit system. Talk to me about that.
Sure thing. MARTA is trying to reconfigure its bus network to account for low ridership on some routes, to make some routes more efficient. If you've ever looked into taking a MARTA bus to get to your destination, you can see how a 1 hour trip could easily become 2 hours based on the current configuration. MARTA, I don't think, got the word out as well as perhaps they could have, or maybe the news cycle was just so busy we missed the news. But the original deadline for that was March 9th, and they're going to bump that out to March 16th. Our friends in Kirkwood are concerned about the elimination of a bus route through Kirkwood. They're asking MARTA to reconsider and put that back on the table. MARTA hasn't made any decisions yet. They're going to have to approve the plan and then implement it. Still a long way to go. The current draft plan is up on the MARTA website, so please, if you haven't given your input and you are a MARTA bus rider, go take a look. Go add your comments. They need your input.
Yep, March 16th is going to be your deadline, so a couple days, about 5 days, you have to look at everything. I know Decatur-ish put out some useful links and some more information, so do make sure you check that out. All right, City of Decatur, always top of mind for us here on Decatur Dish, and I want to talk about their charter. Right now, city leaders reviewing the charter and could be making some major potential changes to it.
If I may nerd out on how government works for a second, a charter is basically a city's constitution. It establishes the powers and duties of the mayor, city staff, provides a framework for ordinances and all the things that occur within a city government. The biggest change that they're looking into is making the mayor directly elected. Last show we had Decatur Mayor Patty Garrett. In a lot of cities, when you elect a mayor, everybody votes on who the mayor's going to be. That's not how it works in Decatur. The mayor is chosen almost as if they're the chairman of the board by their fellow commissioners. Traditionally, within the last few cycles, it has gone to the senior-most commissioner. There is an at-large seat where the whole city votes on it that is currently held by Mayor Pro Tem Tony Powers. So the idea with this charter review is potentially taking that at-large seat and making that the mayor potentially. So that's something that is going to come up. They're going to do a charter review commission. They're going to have over a dozen people look into this. But that is the biggest change that's currently being contemplated right now.
Speaking of big changes and major funding, let's talk about Cross Keys High School in Brookhaven for a moment. This school is getting millions of dollars to address aging infrastructure.
Cross Keys is overdue, but they're on a list with a lot of other schools that are overdue for repairs. Yesterday's board meeting was really interesting. The Cross Keys budget was initially supposed to be $104 million. It's now $148 million, and that is not unique to projects in DeKalb County. They have a massive backlog of stuff that they need to do, and it's outstripping the funding pace that they've set. So they've basically not getting enough money in to pay for the projects they're awarding contracts for. Yesterday was the first meeting in a while we've seen some pretty close split votes on things. It has been relatively calm until the last meeting. So that's something that's going to bear watching, because there's starting to be some disagreement on the school board about their funding priorities and what they're paying for and how they're paying for it. But Cross Keys, for the moment, seems to have their project set. It's going to happen. There are a lot of other projects that are behind it that are still up in the air, notably Druid Hills High modernization project.
Do you think that with this type of funding, with this type of attention, that we'll start to see, more schools like Druid Hills you just mentioned, kind of say, now wait a minute, we need this too?
They're already saying that. So most of this funding comes from what's called the Education Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. And if you need help remembering that, it has the same amount of syllables as supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Right. If you need that. So that's the penny sales tax that voters approve every year. And that money is supposed to go to building projects. But for a host of reasons, not the least of which being inflation, the amount of money they're raising is just, it's not enough to keep pace with what they need to do. And there's already some talk and discussion about, well, what about us? You promised us this. What about that? Not everybody in the end is going to get what they were promised, but nobody wants to say who's going to get left out, and nobody wants to be the person that's left out. So this year is going to be really, really interesting when it comes to funding these projects.
Interesting to say the least. We'll have to follow and let you know what happens. I want to shout out DeKalb County readers for a moment. Decatur-ish readers, we love y'all. We love your support, but DeKalb County as a whole is pretty impressive as far as its readership goes, and I want to talk about that for a moment. One of the challenges that many schools and parents are facing is getting young people to read and connect with books. And it's really hard because you're fighting technology, the iPads, the iPhones, all of that stuff. Well, DeKalb County Libraries is leaning into technology and using it to re-inspire the magic of reading. Atlanta News First Sawyer Bussey has the story.
It has been said that fewer and fewer people are reading these days, that people would rather scroll through social media than pick up a book.
Reading, again, it builds empathy, and it's something that that really brings a community together.
DeKalb County Public Library is seeing a thriving community of readers at their 23 branches, in an age where tech is king. This is all thanks to an app called Libby. It's free. All you need is a library card number to sign in.
We've had Libby since 2010. And the use has just grown steadily, and 2024 is where we crossed the 1 million mark. The pandemic was hard on public libraries, and to have us come back this way with the support of the county for these materials has just been, it's great.
That number, of course, does not include books checked out at libraries.
We're about 50-50 for digital versus physical material, but we checked out 1.6 million books last year. So books are still winning. Paper is not dead.
The library system is celebrating their 100th birthday this year. In DeKalb County, Sawyer Bussey, Atlanta News First.
Don't you just love that? That is
like readers and reading.
That story, I read it, I was like, oh, we have to talk about this. So DeKalb County, shout out to you. Keep it up. Hey, this is the Decatur Dish, and we like to get into some subjects that are important to DeKalb County, and public safety always comes up as one of those. So we are talking about a gun violence safety event that is happening in DeKalb County on March 16th, I believe. And we have a special guest, one of the speakers at this event, YaTonya Oliver. She's the president of the DeKalb chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority. And she, along with other leaders, we have the DeKalb County Sheriff, we have the superintendent, and other representatives are going to be joining her for a conversation around gun violence. We'll talk to YaTonya Oliver right after this short break.
And joining us today is YaTonya Oliver to talk about this gun violence panel that's going to be happening this Sunday. The event is called This is DeKalb, a crucial conversation on gun violence. YaTonya, what inspired this event?
Thank you for having me. I think the inspiration behind this event has really been the consistent news publications of guns raiding our schools, our homes, but more importantly, our community as a whole.
What are the goals for this event? Is it just to have a conversation, or are you hoping to come out with an action plan?
Primarily, what we want to do is to ensure that the community feels educated. It is free. This event is open to the public, parents, employees, organizations are all invited. With the women that have been planning this event over the past 6 months, what we really want to do is end the crucial conversation that educates with a call to action. And that call to action really consists of how do we mobilize a movement where we arm and equip families on proper gun safety? How do we educate families on the ability to have those crucial conversations as it pertains to mental health? How do we begin to eradicate this fear that if a child goes to school, is there any possibility that they don't return home? And I think through the panelists that we have to speak at this event, we are really hoping that we can ignite within them a sense of commitment that not only are we talking about this, but we're wanting to do something as a collective community to improve the gun issues that we continue to hear day in and day out.
YaTonya, DeKalb police have been saying for a long time that violent crime is down historically across the country. That's true. There's been a few notable cases of certain categories being up, like homicides. Why is that, do you think? It's down nationally, it's lower than it's been, but it's still top of mind for so many residents.
Absolutely. It is so much top of mind that I think last week you all featured at a gas station. A gentleman was shot on March the 6th through an altercation that occurred and resulted in his death. I also think that it is truly top of mind because if I go back to the basics, conversations at the dinner table around what's important, what's not important, aren't really being had. I think there's a level of avoidance that's in the air and also a level of fear that's also in the air. And so as a result of it, situations continue to perpetuate, increase, and continue to be top of mind.
YaTonya, I wanted to ask you what you're seeing locally in terms of trends with gun violence. What are some of the things that you've observed?
I think personally, I will say that gun violence has become more of a event in the school systems. No longer is it just in the community. No longer is it an event in isolation. Growing up here in Atlanta, I never really worried about someone bringing a gun to schools. We've seen in the media over at least the past 18 months, again, this reoccurring themes of senseless gun shooting, and now in the hands of our youth. So that has become one of the more common themes that is top of mind for me.
Are you tracking any of the bills that are going through the legislature, and are any of the bills that are being considered going to be helpful for this problem?
That's a great question as well. Within my organization, we do have committees that focus on legislation and bills that are being passed. I myself, I will admit, I don't have a firm pulse on what is what's happening from a legislative policy perspective. But what I can say is that we are consciously engaging with our political representatives to ensure that they advocate and they identify opportunities to implement new policies to eradicate the gun violence issues we're having.
The short version, as best I can tell, is that the impetus in the legislature is to expand access to guns and restrict the ability of cities to regulate guns within their jurisdictions. With that in mind and the limited amount of tools in the toolbox that communities have, what can communities do outside of passing new laws or new regulations to address gun violence in places like DeKalb County?
I think the first thing that communities to do, which is one of the call to actions we're going to do on Sunday, is unite. I think the second thing that communities should do and are doing more in a grassroots fashion is to have these organic conversations around events, activities that are occurring, and ways that we can get involved. I think the last component as it relates to being involved is to raise our voices in a united fashion where we lock arms with law enforcement, churches, businesses, school systems to really determine how can we all collectively contribute to the solution.
YaTonya, is there a place for responsible gun owners within this conversation? And if so, what is it?
That is an excellent question. I think for responsible gun owners, it really boils down to what would you want your child to know? What would you want the employee or employees that you work with to know? What would you want someone in a grocery store to know? And if you're truly responsible, how do you give them this New Life Church? It's located right on New Life Church. It's located right on Candler Road, and it is free and open to the public. Our hashtag this year is This is DeKalb. As a member of Lambda Epsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, you can find additional information on our website, on our Facebook page, as well as Instagram. And again, we are welcoming all members of the community to come out and listen, come out and learn, but more importantly, be a part of this crucial conversation.
YaTonya, thank you so much for inviting the public to this. Thank you for coming on our show, and thank you for the important work that you're doing. It's a very important discussion that our community needs to have, and I hope you'll join us again sometime to talk more about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the Decatur Dish Show. We air every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. right here on Atlanta News First Plus. To check out episodes of this show, download the Atlanta News First Plus app. You can also stream podcasts of the show wherever you stream podcasts. To get all the latest news on DeKalb County, visit Decatorish.com. With that, we hope you all have a great week. Stay safe, and we'll see you next Tuesday right here on Atlanta News First Plus.